Hello, this is Hyatt Frobos, a PhD student in swine nutrition at Kansas State University, and today I'm going to be going over my poster presentation from the 2015 Midwest Animal Science meetings titled The Effects of Detoxifying Agents on Growth Performance of Pigs Fed Deoxynivalenol-Contaminated Wheat. Now, deoxynivalenol, also known as DON or vomitoxin, is one of the most common mycotoxins in cereal grains worldwide, and it presents significant challenges to pig producers because pigs are the most susceptible of the farm species. There are many commercially available detoxifying agents which exist on the market and claim to have some benefits in DON-contaminated diets. However, there is limited data to support these claims. And while generally the use of adsorbent materials have shown limited effectiveness against DON, there is a newly available product in the experimental phase titled Product D and marketed by NutriQuest, which is a combination of adsorbent materials and preservatives and may have some benefit in DON-contaminated diets. And the authors also wanted to compare sodium metabisulfite, or SMB, which has shown positive results in previous research at Kansas State when hydrothermally processed, such as in a pelleting environment. However, additional research is necessary to confirm its effectiveness in pigs. Therefore, the objectives of the study were to determine whether an unknown test ingredient, product D, or sodium metabisulfite, a known effective detoxifying agent, could have benefit in DON-contaminated diets. For the procedures, we used a total of 238 pigs, initially 13 kilograms, in a 21-day experiment, with 6 or 7 replicate pens per treatment and 7 pigs per pen. And our experimental design was a 2x2 plus 1 factorial, with the main effects being DON contamination at 0 or 4 milligrams per kilogram, or the inclusion of 1% product D or none, as well as a fifth treatment, the plus 1 in the factorial, which involved the inclusion of 1% sodium metabisulfite in DON-contaminated diets. And then due to the necessary hydrothermal activation of sodium metabisulfite, all of these diets were pelleted at 82 degrees Celsius with a minimum retention time in the conditioning chamber of 45 seconds. Moving on to the diet composition, in this study, again, we had 2 diets that had low formulated DON-contaminated levels and 3 diets that contained high DON levels at 4.0 milligrams per kilogram. We used different sources of wheat to incorporate DON at desired levels, and other than that, all of the diet specs were similar except for the inclusion of our specialty ingredients at 1% for product D or sodium metabisulfite, and these were included at the expense of sand. As we look at mycotoxin analysis, all of these diets were sent to LDA labs in Plaufragan, France for a full 46-component mycotoxin profile. And these are the toxins which showed up at detectable levels, but all of these levels were below those that have been used as critical performance limits in pigs previously. If we look at the analyzed DON concentration, however, on the vertical axis of this table we have the concentration of DON, and along the horizontal axis we have the formulated DON levels and inclusion of feed additives representing our experimental treatments. Our diets formulated to be low in DON came back very appropriately so, whereas the diets formulated to be high in DON at 4 milligrams per kilogram generally matched expected levels, but you might be catching the attention of the sodium metabisulfite diet formulated at 4.0 milligrams per kilogram. It's much lower, and this is likely due to the conversion of DON to a DON sulfonate adduct, which, when sodium metabisulfite is combined in the presence of DON with moisture and heat, it actually causes a chemical conversion of the structural form of DON to a non-toxic product, which is not detectable by clinical analytical labs. So the way that we ensured that we had enough DON in these original diets was we made one large batch for these 3 treatments and then split them into 3 sub-batches where we then added our specialty ingredients prior to pelleting. Now if we transition to what the pigs were telling us, if we look on all of these tables on the vertical axis, we have our response variable, and along the horizontal then again our experimental treatments. For average daily gain from day 0 to 21, we detected a DON by product D interaction, where DON reduced average daily gain, and the presence of product D in DON-contaminated diets worsened performance as compared to in clean diets where there was no difference. If we look at sodium metabisulfite, however, it actually recovered the performance of the negative control DON-contaminated diets and actually surpassed that of the clean diets as well. For feed intake, we again picked up a DON by product D tendency for an interaction, again matching the average daily gain where DON reduced feed intake as would be expected from previous literature. However, the inclusion of product D tended to interact more poorly in DON-contaminated diets as compared to clean. And the inclusion of sodium metabisulfite recovered feed intake back to the level of the positive controls, which generally matched our previous research with sodium metabisulfite. And for feed efficiency, we did not detect that DON by product D interaction in ADG and ADFI, but the inclusion of deoxynivalenol reduced feed efficiency, and the inclusion of sodium metabisulfite not only recovered feed efficiency back to the level of the clean diets, but was actually significantly higher than in diets that were fed no deoxynivalenol at all. And if we look at the DON effect by period, as reflected by a percentage of reduction in average daily gain, this is showing how the pigs were affected when DON was included in their diets in diets 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4. So from day 0 to 3, after the initial exposure to DON, the pigs fed DON had a 90% lower average daily gain as compared to pigs fed clean diets. And while that lessened over time, it still was around 20% difference in average daily gain over the cumulative period from day 0 to 21. But this initial decrease in performance seems to match our previous data, as DON most affects the pigs during that initial exposure period. And so with these in mind, the overall conclusions of the study was that deoxynivalenol contamination of cereal grains does still remain a problem for swine producers, with levels of reduction in growth of up to 20% over a 21-day period in nursery pigs. And while product D, the product of interest, did not have a benefit in DON-contaminated diets, adding sodium metabisulfite prior to pelleting does appear to serve as a way to utilize DON-contaminated feedstuffs without sacrificing growth performance. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention during this presentation.